Ever get the feeling you're being watched? Like, really watched? By your own reflection?
Oh, spooky. I can already tell I'm going to enjoy this.
Right. Today we're going deep on this creepy story called The Demon Inside My Reflection. So basically, it's about this ordinary person who realizes that their reflection is acting a little strange.
Interesting.
Yeah, and as the story goes on, that reflection becomes something way more sinister.
Like a evil twin kind of thing.
Exactly. And the story does a great job of starting subtly. At first, the main character just notices, like, small things.
Yeah.
A delayed movement, a weird facial expression.
Yeah, I get it. Like a glitch. Like, is it my imagination or something really off?
And of course, the character tries to come up with normal reasons for it. Stress, bad lighting.
Oh, I bet. But deep down, they probably know something's wrong.
Right, it's that uncanny valley thing. When something's almost human, but not quite.
Ugh, that creeps me out just thinking about it. And the fact that it's your own reflection. Yikes.
And it gets worse. The reflection starts getting bolder, like smiling when the person isn't, or staring intensely at them.
So it's becoming like aware, like a separate being.
Yeah, and that's where things get really freaky. The reflection starts talking, like whispering to the character.
Okay, hold on. That's way past creepy. Like, are we talking actual words?
Actual whispers. The story describes them as guttural, coming straight from the mirror.
So at this point, the mirror is not just a reflection, right? It's like an entity. It's breaking that fourth wall.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not all just threats and scary stuff. The reflection actually offers the character knowledge and secrets, almost like a dark temptation.
Ooh, that's a good twist. Like, what are you willing to risk for forbidden knowledge?
Right. And of course, the character can't resist. They touch the mirror and boom, pulled into this other dimension called the mirror world.
Now we're talking. This sounds like some next level stuff.
Yeah, it gets wild. The author describes the mirror world as like a distorted version of our world. Everything's warped and unsettling.
Okay, I have to ask, like, what kind of warped? Give me some details. I need to know.
So imagine familiar faces, but like their features are all wrong, grotesque, almost demonic. And everything feels heavy, the atmosphere itself.
Ugh, that's terrifying. It's like your worst nightmare come to life.
Totally. And here's the kicker. We learn the reflection's true motive. It wants to escape the mirror world, and guess what?
Let me guess. Take over the person's life in the real world. Classic.
You got it. Talk about a terrifying identity theft.
This whole duality thing is so fascinating. Like, the reflection is the darker, twisted version of the person.
And it makes you think, right? What parts of ourselves do we try to hide or deny?
Exactly. I'm already hooked. Let's dive deeper. Like, it's the whole doppelganger thing, right? The evil twin that represents your darkest impulses. That reflection is more than just a copycat. It's like a twisted version of the person's inner self.
Whoa, so it's like they're fighting a part of themselves.
Exactly. And the story makes it clear that ignoring your dark side, well, it doesn't make it go away. It might actually make it stronger.
So what happens next? We've got the main character stuck in this creepy mirror world and this evil reflection trying to take over their life.
Okay, so picture this. The reflection slips into the real world and tries to act like the main character.
But it can't be perfect, right? Like, there must be some slip-ups.
Oh, there are. The author uses these tiny details to show something's wrong, like a gesture that's not quite right, a creepy smile, a sudden burst of cruelty.
It's like a mask slowly slipping. That psychological horror, that slow burn is super effective.
Yeah. And while this is happening, the real person is trapped in the mirror world. And it's not just scary creatures they have to deal with. It's their own inner demons, too.
Sounds rough. So is there like a deeper meaning to all this torment?
Definitely. The whole mirror world experience is like a metaphor. It's about facing your shadow self, the parts of yourself you try to hide.
So it's not just escaping a monster, it's about facing the monsters inside you.
Exactly. And the story says that real freedom comes from accepting those dark parts of yourself, not denying them.
That's pretty powerful, but how do you even start to confront those scary parts of yourself?
The story gives some hints. The character's strongest weapon against their reflection is self-acceptance. Accepting their flaws and weaknesses takes away the reflection's power.
Makes sense. If you accept yourself, warts and all, those dark impulses have less control over you.
Exactly. They're just part of who you are, not some separate, terrifying thing.
This is kind of hopeful, actually. It's not just about being scared, it's about facing your fears and becoming stronger.
That's good horror for you. It entertains you, scares you, but it also makes you think about yourself and the world in a different way.
So we've talked about the reflection as our shadow self, but are there other ways to see the mirror in this story?
Oh, totally. It could also be about self-reflection, looking inward and examining your thoughts and feelings.
It can be helpful, but also scary, right? When you confront the parts of yourself you don't like.
For sure. It's fascinating how a simple mirror can have such a deep meaning in a story.
Right. It makes the horror more realistic, more relatable. I mean, we all look in the mirror, right?
Every day. We all have that moment of facing our reflection. This story just twists that everyday thing into something terrifying and thought-provoking.
And speaking of thought-provoking, the ending is pretty open-ended. Did the main character really escape the mirror world? Or is the monster still inside them?
That's what makes it so good. The author leaves you with questions about identity, good and evil, even the nature of reality itself.
It reminds us that dealing with our inner demons is a constant battle, not a one-time thing.
Absolutely. There are always going to be challenges and temptations. The key is to know yourself and be strong enough to face them without being consumed by them.
So how does this apply to our everyday lives? Most of us aren't fighting evil reflections, hopefully.
Well, it reminds us to be aware of our thoughts, our actions, our motives. Watch out for those red flags, those moments when you might do something out of character, something that goes against your values.
It's like that saying, the only real monster is the one inside us. Although that might be too simple.
It's more nuanced than that. That monster inside us isn't something to be afraid of or try to destroy. It's part of us.
Hmm.
And by understanding it, accepting it, we become more complete, more balanced people.
That's a much better way to look at it. So instead of trying to hide our shadow self, we should try to understand it, learn from it.
Exactly. Maybe even use its energy for good things.
Yeah.
Even our darkest impulses can be a source of creativity, passion, and drive.
This has been a crazy deep dive. From horror tropes to self-discovery, this story really sparked a fascinating conversation.
That's the power of storytelling, right? It takes you to other worlds, challenges what you believe, helps you understand your own life.
So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive into the demon inside my reflection. Everything from classic horror stuff to like the psychology of the self. It's amazing how much this short story makes you think.
It really is. It sticks with you.
Before we finish up, I'm curious, what stood out to you about how the author used the mirror as a symbol?
You know, I think the way the author blurred the lines between reality and perception was brilliant. The mirror world isn't just some place you go. It's a reflection of what's going on inside the main character, their fears, their worries. It shows how easily our sense of reality can be messed with.
That's so true. It makes you wonder, like, how much of what we see is actually real and how much is just our own thoughts and beliefs changing things.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes this story so creepy. It makes you question everything you think you know and face the possibility that things might not be what they seem.
It's like that old question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it make a sound? But in this case, it's more like, if a demon's in your reflection and only you see it, is it really there?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that's part of why we love horror. It lets us safely explore those scary questions, the things we don't know.
Yeah, it's like a workout for our fears. But going back to facing our fears, what do you think the author's trying to say about self-acceptance? Is it really as simple as love yourself and the monsters will go away?
I don't think it's that simple. The story shows that self-acceptance is a journey, not a destination. It's about recognizing all the parts of yourself. The good, the bad, the messy stuff, and not judging yourself for it.
Like being okay with the fact that we're all a little messed up in our own ways.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's part of what makes us human, embracing those contradictions and imperfections.
So next time we look in the mirror, maybe instead of focusing on what we don't like, we should try to see the whole picture, the good and the bad, the potential.
I like that. It's about seeing that we're all a work in progress, always growing and changing.
Well, I think we've really gotten a lot out of this deep dive into the demon inside my reflection. We've talked about duality, self-perception, reality itself, and the power of self-acceptance.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I think the story will stay with our listeners long after they finish listening.
Absolutely. So, listeners, next time you look in the mirror, really look, not just at the surface, but at what's underneath. Embrace the good and the bad, the messy and the beautiful, because that's what makes you, you. And who knows, maybe you'll find something truly amazing hiding in there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.